Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Jose Barzola. I'm the Conflict and Peace Specialist here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Today's event is based on the 37th Annual Peer Mediation Conference. A couple of years back, we started doing these virtual sessions just to kind of create some awareness and education, not only that the conference is continuing, but also that, nice little recap of what we've been doing and learning together. And so it's been a wonderful journey, to say the least. But today's session is on developing sustainable peer mediation programs. The session today is we'll be learning about this 37th Annual Peer Mediation Conference that brought high school students trained in peer mediation on Oahu together. The coordinators of those three high schools will share reflections on developing sustaining peer mediation programs. I do want to acknowledge the collaborative of many conflict resolvers, peace building organizations all around the islands that are continuously supporting today's event. So it's definitely brought to you by the Peer Mediation Conference Committee in partnership with Conflict and Peace Specialist, the Conflict Resolution Alliance, a local nonprofit, Barrington High School, Hawaii Laboratory School, Hawaii State Bar Association, Attorney Dispute Resolution Section, Hawaii Technology Academy, who is in the process of developing a program as well, Kailua High School, that has a program, Kauai Economic Opportunity, Kuakaki Mediation Center, the Matanai Institute for Peace, Maui Mediation Services, Mediation Works, the Hawaii State Judiciary Center for Alternative Dispute Resolution, the Mediation Center of the Pacific, and the West Hawaii Mediation Center. So I do want to acknowledge all the wonderful organizations that continue to support this collaborative. Our panel of speakers today our moderator for today is going to be Ms. Katie Ranney, who is currently the Assistant Ombuds at the University of California, Davis, UC Davis. Previously, she was a Program Development Director at the Mediation Center of the Pacific as a peace builder, independent facilitator, and communication consultant for at least 17 years. Katie has worked mostly with nonprofits and government agencies to create substantial plans to strengthen and advance their endeavors. She graduated summa cum laude from Santa Clara University and her master's in communication right here at the University of Hawaii, Manoa, with a certificate in conflict resolution. She's interested in the development and practice of empathy, as well as how digital communication helps groups connect and organize. Our panel speakers today. First, we have Ms. Shelley Andrews, who works as a high-risk counselor at Kailua High School since 2003. For the past 20 years, she has regularly facilitated psychoeducational groups, including peer education programs, which focuses on teaching peer mediation, a positive coping group for students that are currently coping with anxiety, boys and girls lunch groups focus on teaching social skills, and a parent project, which is a parent support group. Shelley is a graduate of the University of Hawaii at Manoa, where she earned a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's in educational counseling and guidance, as well as a graduate certificate in conflict resolution. Additionally, we have Ms. Fuatino Manu, goes by Tino, is a social worker at the Farrington High School's Teen Center. As an alumni of Farrington, she became a peer mediator as a first-year student in high school. Tino has conducted multiple mediations on campus throughout her high school career and provided training to her fellow classmates on how to become a peer mediator. Being a peer mediator allowed her to feel safe, connected to the campus and her peers, and build connections with a diverse group of people. It has also allowed her to assess and understand all points of views to help her peers determine the solution. And she has been fortunate to use her mediation skills at her last employment with at-risk youth on multiple school campuses on Oahu. Tino earned her associate's degree in human services from Western Nebraska Community College and a bachelor's degree in social work at the University of Central Missouri. And our last panelist is Miss Betty Skiles, who's been teaching science to middle and high schoolers for over 20 years. She has a passion for working with students to develop skills that go beyond the classroom and is always seeking out opportunities to expand and learn. Her journey began with mindfulness, first for herself, and then to be able to teach others. She has earned several certificates in mindfulness education, including becoming a certified mindfulness instructor for mindful schools. Expanding her journey, she has been extensively involved with social and emotional professional learning communities, which led to the development of a peer mediation program at the University Laboratory School, where she has been teaching since 2012. Recognizing a need for peacemakers in today's contentious society, she's currently a candidate for the grad certificate in conflict resolution at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. As part of the program, she's developing a peer mediation program at her school. And without further ado, I want to turn it over to our moderator for today. Katie, take it away. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Jose. I really appreciate that wonderful welcome. And thank you everyone for being here for the past few years. So this is the 37th Peer Mediation Conference. For the past few years, at least, there has been this sort of public event where on a topic related to peer mediation that is in connection with the Peer Mediation Conference that is specifically for students in Hawaii, students who are part of or are going to be part of a peer mediation program within their school. So for this one, for this event, we have three wonderful speakers here who will be talking a little bit about uh, being the one who is running and managing a peer mediation program at different phases within it, in hopes of providing some insight in how you or maybe someone that you know can create or maintain a peer mediation program in your own communities. But I do want to start off a little bit, since this event is tied with the Peer Mediation Conference, to talk a little bit about that. So it happened in this past March, and the Peer Mediation Conference goals are to connect the peer mediators with each other, not only to learn a little bit more, to have a little bit more skills development, but also to connect across schools. Oftentimes, the programs within the school itself are relatively small. There's a couple of people, they all know each other fairly well, or at least they're going to, as they're working together. And so having an opportunity to talk to people who are doing kind of what they are doing, but in different places, and to be able to empathize and learn from each other. And that is exactly what this conference accomplished. There were students from Farrington High School, Kailua High School, Hawai'i Technology Academy, and the University Lab School who were all there, as well as some older students from UH Manoa who were helping with the running of it, and doing everything along those lines. There were about 33 people there altogether, which was really wonderful. And the students, so not only were there some more experienced peer mediators who spoke about the issues that they encounter, some of the challenges that they've had being peer mediators, as well as the ways that they are trying to overcome those challenges and what they've found works really well for them. They also practice scenarios with each other. And some of the scenarios were scenarios that they themselves had created, drawing from their experiences as students on what are going to be the most likely conflicts that they and their peers are going to encounter, so that they were able to practice things that were really connected to them. And that was the intent. And the students provided a lot of feedback from it. And it seems like that intent was actually very much accomplished within this, that they got a bit more practice. I will say, due to COVID and a lot of the stay-at-home orders, so a lot of the programs or the activity in the programs understandably had to diminish, because everything was on Zoom, and the entire structure kind of changed. And so there's been a lot of a rebuilding of these established peer mediation programs, and a relearning or learning anew for a lot of these students on how to be a peer mediator, how to be a mediator. And so they were able to practice, they were able to learn from each other, and they were able to really connect. They were able to connect across the way and have this relationship with people who didn't know before, will not be in school with, but who are the same as them because they're both mediators. And so they were able to connect in that way. So I just wanted to give like a little overview of that sort of student-centric, that's just for them kind of event that this was tied to. And the committee that runs it is obviously wanting to build it, make it bigger, love more students to get involved with this, to learn those essential skills of how to listen non-judgmentally, of how to listen for someone's issues, to look towards the interests rather than their positions, real skills that are going to serve them later down the line, as well as immediately as a student. If everyone learned how to listen and got reinforced on how to listen well from elementary school through high school, imagine what a different world it would be. So let's get started with our panel, because you're here to hear them talk. And we are going to start off with Betty, who is starting off her program now. Looking that through. So Betty.
Thank you, Katie. All right, so I think I should start this information by saying that what I was doing in working on my conflict resolution grad certificate is I was able to take my practicum class this semester. And so getting started with the program was part of the class. So I was fortunate I got to do a little dual function there. Definitely gave me that extra motivation to do a lot of the research and things that I needed to do to be able to get the program kind of started. And so the beginning of the program was definitely talking about the conference and putting that together and seeing what was going to go on behind the scenes and that sort of thing. That's how it all started. Then moved into, well, my students would need to be trained. I took a mediation class last semester, and I definitely wouldn't want to recommend that anyone do this without first having some kind of experience in at least a mediation class. It was a really good class. I was able to practice and practice mediation skills and that sort of thing. So that's definitely my foundation and where I was coming from. Then I moved into seeing what kind of interest I had here. So I put some flyers up and I organized my flyers in a way where I was like, what is a mediator? What are the benefits of being a mediator? What would be the benefit to them as students, as high school students? I did how it would benefit them in the future, like potential careers, potential courses of study at universities and that sort of thing. I had that on the flyer. I also had a call to action saying that they would be required to participate in a training and a conference, and that they were welcome to come and for an informational meeting. And so I had a good amount of students. I want to say maybe 15, I think, students showed up for my first Friday session. And I just kind of ran through everything that I just laid out in the flyer, but obviously in more detail, talked to them about the program, answered questions, and then sent out a form to get commitment. And out of those 15, I had 12. I had 13 that actually committed to the program. So that was exciting. And then we had a training session that went on in the morning. And that was provided by Shelly, who you'll hear from in a little bit, which was awesome. I have to say, one of the things that I needed to work on to have this program moving forward is developing my own training program that I would be able to offer here in the future at ULS. And so I definitely took pieces of what Shelly had to offer. And then there's other training manuals and ideas that were out there. And so I pulled on those as well as my own mediation class, of course. And so I definitely have developed a manual right now. And I've got that set up and ready to go. But the students went through the program, the training that they had that day. They loved it. We got really good feedback. I think some of them were surprised. They didn't know what to expect. And they loved the ability to practice and do mediations with each other. They definitely said that was one of their favorite parts. After we got the students developed, with their skills and understanding what mediators' roles are, and they got the training under the belt, then we had the conference, and being able to come back and work with even more students through the conference was very beneficial for them. They really, really enjoyed working with students in other schools. I don't know, our school is very small. We have about 56 students per grade in 6 through 12, so they get to know each other really well. So the opportunity to work with other students is like a treat for them, very special. And they definitely appreciated that interaction that they got with students from the other schools. And they really enjoyed hearing about other peer mediator programs and the issues that they face, and having that question and answer session during the conference was absolutely fabulous. So I want to say that all of this has kind of helped to motivate my students to be able to, stay in the program and move forward with it. And the next phase of my developing my program is I wanted to develop an overview to submit to both my administrators and to the assistant administrator that's in charge of discipline. And so that was kind of a piece. I thought I think I have enough time that I thought I might kind of run through the things that were super important just in getting that organized. And right away, notice I'm mentioning admin, you're going to have the administrator support, obviously, in the schools, because if you don't have that, the things are not going to work well. It's not going to go forward. So I met with them early on in the semester about having the program and doing all the things, definitely had their support. And then now that I'm at the end of all this planning phase, I met with the administrator in charge of discipline, just met with her yesterday, and went through everything that I kind of laid out, the overview and everybody's roles and things like that and what to expect. And so we're definitely moving forward next semester with having a fresh start. We'll recruit the students that were part of everything this semester, and then we'll be starting the true program. We'll be getting its off the ground, will be happening next semester. So this semester was more kind of getting our feet wet and getting the kids to understand it and developing this framework. Now that I've got that established, I'll be fully having a program by the fall. So some of the things that I wanted to include in my overview that I offered for my administrators was to, first of all, lay out the goals and the benefits that the students would have. Things that are very obvious, like they're learning conflict resolution skills, but also things that are maybe not so obvious, like helping students gain, better self-awareness, better relationship skills, communication skills, and then things that administrators like to hear and that have been shown. Having something like a conflict resolution program in your school tends to reduce those instances of bullying, violence, disruptive behavior, which are all things that can interfere with learning. And so obviously the administrators like hearing that piece, and that's a very important piece of the program. The next component that I wanted to do, or the next piece, was to lay out all the different program components. So I mentioned that the program supported by administration, of course. Then I mentioned my role as a coordinator. And so the coordinator would be the one to set up the training that would supervise the mediations and set up the regular meetings with the peer mediators, and working closely with the dean of students. That's who we call the person that gets all the referrals for disciplinary action. And so I will be working closely with her moving forward. I laid out the role of the mediators, and then I also was very explicit in naming what they are not. Making sure to include that they're a neutral third party, they're not therapists, they're not judges, they're not lawyers, they're not advice givers, but just a neutral third party, and also that they would be considered mandatory reporters for self-harm, harm to others, and illegal activities. The next piece I wanted to make sure I included was talking about the training. So for our school, I thought what would work best is to have a 1-day, 6-hour training. And then we're going to meet twice a month after that. And that way we'll be able to continue anything that maybe needs more work. They'll be able to practice, that sort of thing. The next piece was to talk about intakes and referrals. So I completely stole from Shelley at Kailua High School, and I thought we'd create a Google form and have a website so that anybody that wanted to volunteer to have mediation, they'd be able to fill out that form. It wouldn't have to come through a referral. And then also the dean of students is probably, or not probably, she said she would, refer certain incidences to go through mediation. So we're definitely going to be able to be doing that starting in the fall. I laid out what the mediation sessions were. I even put at the end of my overview what the mediation process looks like, because I wouldn't expect anybody to necessarily know. So I made sure I had that in there. I talked about outreach and awareness. So our mediators will be responsible for doing maybe some presentations and workshops and putting out a campaign to kind of get the word out that they're able to do this, and kind of get that culture of, hey, this is a good thing, and we invite you to come and be a part of this. And then the final piece I have in there is evaluation and improvement. So anybody that goes through the mediation process will get a feedback form, and that way we'll be able to hopefully get feedback on what could be improved upon, what's working well, and how the process went. And I saw some questions that were popping up in the chat. So Katie, did you want to read anything? Might be what be easier.
So there are a bit of there are a few questions. One is not necessarily for you. Just to clarify, that 1 day 6-hour training you're talking about for the students to learn the mediation process, how it works in the school, what that sort of process would be for. And then someone asked, can you speak more about the conflict resolution track in the school? Did you say something
The
about?
track?
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Maybe if I say this, maybe this will answer the question. This is what it makes me think of. These students will be volunteering. So they'll be volunteering as mediators, and then the disputants will be a combination of volunteering for to be in mediation, or they might be referred as part of a disciplinary process. And I explained to my administrator that one of the benefits of having students go through mediation is there's actually a possibility of healing the relationship. A lot of times when there's conflict and students are told, you do this, you do that, done, there's no healing that happens. And then if you offer that opportunity for the students to come up with their own solutions, it actually can result, hopefully, not always, but hopefully, in kind of a healing of the relationship. So, and she liked the idea of that. So we're hoping for that as well.
So if I'm understanding, sort of, the being able as a coordinator to very concretely speak about not only the mediation process, so you're trained and understand about mediation, but being able to really delve into and speak to the benefits to the student is something that can really help to gain administrative support, as well as gain buy-in from the students themselves about why they would do this, why they would take 2 times a month to have these meetings, go through this training, and then be available for mediations themselves. Can you talk a little bit about how that fits within their school schedule? I know that's something that can be a bit of a difficulty, a bit of a pain point for when creating a program.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. We talked about that just yesterday. Judging from what other people have said, having it during their lunch would be ideal. And we have 2 different lunches. We have a middle school lunch and a high school lunch. Our mediators will be high school students to start. We might grow later, but let's just start by next year. Next year, they'll just be the high schoolers. And my administrator mentioned that the middle schoolers have, even though they have a different lunch, that 5th period time is when our high schoolers are in their elective class. Which, not to say that it's not as important, but it would be easier to pull them out of that elective class and act as mediators. And so they'll have that option of either 5th or 6th period. Another option that helps is knowing that they would be having a mediation session coming up. They might be able to eat lunch early, that kind of thing, so that they won't have to miss that opportunity to have a break. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, definitely working with it in the calendar of like, where is the free time? Mostly it seems around lunch is generally where the free time during the school time is. And you mentioned also at the end, there's sort of this evaluation feedback form. Now, is that something that you're providing to the students for their experience? Is there other sort of metrics or evaluations that you're planning for this program?
Haven't thought of any yet. If anybody has any, I'm certainly open to take in more and learn more. I'm sure it'll be not just the disputants that I would have fill out the feedback form, but the mediators as well. And that would definitely be a part of our regular monthly meetings, to discuss how things are going and that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Betty. I really appreciate your sharing your experiences and what you're going through. We do have a couple more questions, but I think some of those might actually end up getting answered with some of our next speakers. So the next one coming up, we're going to have Tino talking about her experience stepping into an established mediation program there after having been a student of one of them, and like what that experience is of maintaining and sustaining that program.
Thank you, Katie. Hello, everyone. My name is Tino Manu, but I can just go by Tino. Thank you guys all, first of all, just for being here. Seems like everyone is tuning in from different places. So yeah, just thank you guys for taking the time to be here today. So just some background history here at Farrington High School. Actually, I just realized that this year makes 30 years that Farrington High School has had a mediation program at our school, making us one of the longest running programs to have something like that. So we started back in 1994. And then during that time, a lot of gang violence and just a lot of violence in general was happening on campus here at Farrington in the 90s. And then I think it got to a point where it just got out of hand and really bad, like out into the news and up into like people at the legislators. So they contacted our admin and was like, listen, you guys need to really figure this out, get this under control, and basically do something about what's going on there. So the social worker at the time, Allison Colby, great lady, she took on that role to become trained as a mediator, and with those skills, she was then in charge of basically creating this whole program, coming up with her own curriculum, handbook, and whatnot. So she's done a great job. Like I said, since 1994, having this program up until today in 2024. So that's just a little bit history of how mediation came to Farrington High School. And then when I was in high school, I would say I went around to different classes. So one of the classes was a leadership class that I was in. And she trained us. It was over a week. I think it was like a week. She would come in during that period. We got trained in one with our peers, and like Katie said, I did do a few cases in high school, and I thought it was just a great opportunity to just learn and meet other people. Of course, I'm gonna be honest, at that point in time, being a teenager, I didn't really understand or realize how much beneficial it would be to me. Now that I'm like 27, now I'm like, wow, like, okay, all those skills and training that I did, I'm like, they definitely are very helpful now. And I think still work with my students to this day, I see that a lot. So I did that, did a bunch of training at actual cases in high school. And I also, even though I was a mediator, and it's okay, I also had to be mediated because I had my own issues too. So as a mediator, I was actually a disputant. So I was, I got to experience both role being the mediator, helping my peers, and then also being the peer that needed the help. So that was just a great experience for me to see both sides, and especially as a mediator to understand how the disputes truly do feel coming in. Yeah, so now as a social worker here at Farrington, I'm an alumni as well, been here for 3 years. Our program is still pretty much the same. We still have a great handbook here that Allison, she recreated this. I'm sorry, it's kind of blurry. Allison created this every training. We've tweaked certain things here and there, but I feel like the training and the material that she's used since then up until now is still so very effective. And whatnot. So here at Farrington, the way it works is we train students during the fall semester and in the spring semester over the course of 2 full days. So for the students, they have to complete 2 full days of the training. It is a bit intense. Like I said, if they come one day but miss the other, they won't be qualified, but they can try again in the next semester to be a mediator. The way I get word out is I speak at assemblies for our different classes. Compared to that school with 54 students in the class here at Farrington, we have about at least 500 something per grade level. So they're different there. So it's nice that, staff and like Betty mentioned admin. The support of our admin has been such a crucial and important part of mediation here at Farrington, which is why it's been able to run for 30 years. Excuse me, and whatnot. So, I mentioned 2 days of that intensive training. We do a bunch of different role plays, and at the end of the training, the students still get to decide whether or not if this is something for them or not. Let's say they got trained, they'd be like, hey, I'm not comfortable being a mediator, but this is a great experience. That's perfectly fine too. Like Betty mentioned earlier, not only for just the immediate moment, but like I said, even now becoming an adult, I realize how much these skills really are a lifetime forever. And I'm so grateful and blessed that I was able to learn it then and now still continue to learn and be involved with it daily. So once you agree, like, okay, this is something I want to do, we do have a contract that, lists their expectations and all their roles, and they sign at the bottom. And once they're on there, then we have a roster, and they're just on there throughout the year. And then with the cases being referred here, can be referred from anybody, from admin, teachers, students, anybody. Usually here at Farrington, it usually comes from admin, from the vice principals. We do have sometimes where the students themselves come and say, hey, Miss, like, can we try mediation? And I think that is always such a great thing and such a testament to the work that our students is doing, to show like, hey, look, they trusted us, so that's nice. So like I mentioned, we can refer through there. And I do let, our staff and people know, like, it does take some time. So if you refer this case to Monday, like, at least give me 48 hours. Because like Katie mentioned, with scheduling and timing and whatnot, it's a lot. Because there's 4 people involved. You have your 2 disputants and then your 2 mediators. So it's a matter of figuring out which class time, which day would work out. Let's say these 3 have like all electives during period 1, but this has like a math class. So I don't want to take someone out of math class. It's really a lot of planning, and like that's why I do ask, whoever referred, just give us just a couple of days, like no more than 2 days. We can, get this case going. But before even that, everyone has to agree. Like I tell our admin and staff here, like, this is not mandatory. Like, kids are not mandatory to do this. This is something that is voluntary. Because I think if both parties understand that, hey, like, this is like no one is forcing us, like we genuinely want to be here. I think it's more effective. It just helps them understand, like, okay, like, just as possible, we can get through this. So that's the nice part about it. And like I shared, it's not mandatory. No one is forcing you to be here. So of course, getting consent from all parties involved, going through their schedule, and getting permission from their teachers, and then finally setting that up. That does take some time, but not impossible. And we usually like to hold it during a class period. Our class period runs from 70 to 75 minutes. Recess would be way too short, and then lunch, I just feel like it's 40 minutes. I feel like it's just be a bit too rushed and whatnot. And our kids honestly enjoy it. I think when they hear, oh, missing class, like it's kind of good with them, put them in here too as well. So we have them here. Usually takes about the whole class period for a process to go through. Then once agreements are written and signed, we make copies. We give a copy of the agreement and a letter to parents' home for the disputants to take home to their parents and whatnot. We also give copies to our admin. We have like a binder filled of all of our referrals, when it was done, was it completed, was it successful. So just kind of a way, to keep our own data and just kind of see where all that is at. I do have a few students here joining us today. So if you guys have any questions for them later, please feel free to ask them that. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. But yeah, that's just a quick snippet of how things here are run at Farrington. Like I said, I just think the support of the admin, understanding what it's about, advertising this well, just really finding students who are interested in this, I think will, any mediation program will find great success. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Tina. I was wondering if you could just explain a little bit more about how you make sure that the students and the teachers as well understand what the program is, because I noticed that you were saying, right, first it's voluntary, so the students have to agree, and then you're trying to figure out the schedule, and then you also need permission from the teachers. So they need to kind of know and understand that, as well as like both students and teachers need to understand the program so it can kind of all come together. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, great question. So again, thankful to our support of our admin. Our principal does ask us, myself and Ms. Kiana, she's currently working with our other students with another program, so she can't join us right now, but they're just right over there, right over the door. So yeah, like I mentioned, every year he asks us to come and speak in front of our entire faculty and staff of 200 plus people. We have a PowerPoint and stuff and whatnot. I really try to be clear and take our times during our presentation at our faculty meeting. But other than that, we always have an open door policy, and we highly suggest and recommend that teachers please give us a call. Even better yet, come to the teen center just to get a feel of, to see what the kids go through. Like I said, our staff has been great with reaching out, asking questions. So I feel like our faculty meetings and having assemblies with different classes, especially the freshman class. So we have this program called Summer Bridge, what I think is great. So 8th graders within our feeder schools, during the summertime, they can earn a credit and come to school during the summertime just to feel more prepared, because it's scary coming in as a freshman. So we get connected with them during the summertime, which is nice, and explain that to them. Because what I found here, just thinking of history and data, what I've seen, I feel like a lot of our cases do come more so from the freshman, sophomore class. I still do get cases from the juniors and seniors, but not as frequent as often as I do the underclassmen. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I don't think we have any questions in here specifically for you, Tino, but we may have them as they're going on as we go through. So next we're going to move over to Shelley. Shelley, who has been in a long-standing peer mediation program and has seen it through its ups and downs, and it is still going strong. So Shelley, if you could speak on your experiences.
Thanks so much for introducing me. It's so true. So we've had a program at Kailua High School since before I started, and I want to say it may have been as long as Tino had her program in '94. I'm not sure, because I took over the program from the counselor that I did my internship with it was, gosh, 1999. So I'm sure he had the program going on for a few years before that. The thing about starting a program at a school, or actually just having a program, it's usually kind of based on that person that's willing to take it on. At one point in Hawaii, there was actually a designated role that schools could actually be paid to run programs, so actually run classes in the DOE. And there were, when I first started attending peer mediation conferences, about maybe 20 to 40 schools at a time at these conferences, very large conferences, like with over, maybe 200 to almost, I want to say up to like 400 students, 200 to 400 students at a time. So it's been, I think, just a something that's been happening in the DOE where there's less lately less support for programs. So like I said, at one point there were teaching positions that were just dedicated to providing peer mediation on campus. And I think that's when Tina was mentioning back in the mid 90s, there was this push to have these programs at schools to reduce violence. I think there was a big issue with violence in schools, and so some way to peacefully negotiate those issues through mediation. So at this point, actually, let me just start from the beginning. So when I first started with peer mediation, I got an introduction to it. Being a counselor, we do get training in how to become a counselor, but sadly, we're not given any training in mediation. So luckily, I was at a school when I did my internship, where they already had a peer mediation program, and I was actually trained by students. So possibly someone like Tino, when she was a peer mediator in high school, I was trained by a junior at Kailua High School at the time in 1999, and she ran me through. Let me just share my website here because I have my handbook there if you scroll to the bottom. So she basically shared this training manual with me, and I was just floored with the amount of training that these high school students had in mediation and just how successful they were in negotiating these conflicts. And then when I returned to Kailua High School in 2003, my the counselor that I had worked under had left, and I luckily had another mentor at Farrington High School. So like Tina mentioned, the person that started the peer mediation program at Farrington was Allison Kobe. And I reached out to her. She was very, very sweet. And basically, our handbook looks a lot like Farrington's handbook. And I basically just changed the name of the handbook to Kailua High School. Everything on there is pretty much very similar. And like Jose just shared in the chat, there's just a bunch of resources there. So please look not only at my website, but all the other resources there. like Betty said as well, stealing from others. Please don't build anything new, or I mean, you can if you'd like to, but there really is a lot of resources out there, and we'd love to help you. If you, I've seen in the chat that people like to participate in the conference. I mean, that's basically how I learned, was learning from other people, and participating in conferences, also visiting other schools. So I had a chance to visit Farrington and see what their school was like and how they were providing mediations. As far as the ebb and flow of my program, so once I got on board, did my training, got my help from Allison, trained my students, similar to Betty, making sure you have that support of admin is so crucial. I had an administrator that was really on board with mediation in our program for a lot of years, but towards the end of her time as principal, decided that it was actually not okay for us to do mediations. So for the last 5 years, we actually haven't been able to do peer mediation at Kailua High School, which has been sad. We've really only been allowed just to kind of have the students do the trainings and then kind of mediate within their own families and within their peer groups. So that's been a bummer, but I do say it's still very, very helpful to the kids to get the skills. Katie was saying at the beginning, imagine if everybody was just trained in good listening skills and conflict management. Like, I really think we would have just the perfect, world, really. We wouldn't have the many issues that we are facing today, hopefully, in our world, and people would just be a little bit kinder, I think. So I do feel that it is still helpful. My students, at the school, I do pre-post tests, so before and after, and they are learning the skills. They have told me that they've used it within their own families. I will say, my own children attend Kailua High School. I have a senior and a sophomore, and sometimes they're using this conflict management that I've taught them through peer mediation on myself and within our own family. So it's it's been really neat to see it kind of come back, even just in that personal way as well. And I think I'm gonna end there. I think I would say it's definitely worth it. And I'm hoping that we do have a new principal at our school, and I'm hoping we'll get peer mediation going again, where we actually take more cases. So hopefully soon we'll be able to do these cases again, because when we were doing it, it was, like I said, that first experience of peer mediation for myself when I was an intern counseling student. Just it's amazing what the kids can do, and when they have, you provide them with the opportunity to make these positive interactions within their peer groups, but also just within their school, they feel empowered, and it changes everything. And I have had students that, they did say that, wow, I use these skills, and then later on they actually like turned to counseling or became a lawyer or became a mediator later on in life. So, or maybe they just used it, like I said, within their family and peer group, and it was really helpful. So all good things. Per copy pre and post test. Yep, sure, I can share that with you. What's just a Google form.
Okay. Well, I would like to sort of invite all of our panelists up, kind of a thing. Let me see if I can do that with this. Nope, doesn't look like it. So I'm going to have everyone all together. Great. So one of the questions that I have, and this may be a bit more towards Shelley and Tino, apologies, Betty, but since the topic of this is about making a sustainable peer mediation program and creating something that is sustainable, do either of you, and actually Betty, as you're creating this is a great question to have, and if you've addressed it or thought about it, I'd love to know. Have you thought about that sort of sustainability beyond you as a coordinator? Because it seems, we've all talked about getting student buy-in, getting the structure set in place, getting the admin buy-in, and having admin support is so important. But a lot of that seems to center around you as a coordinator. Do you have a plan set in place for when you are no longer there, but the program continues on beyond you?
Yeah, I haven't thought about that. Good question. Like I mentioned earlier, I think because Allison did such a phenomenal job at creating this handbook, that their curriculum that I'll leave with them would definitely be a great thing for them to go back. So like I said, just having that, and as we've gone on, Ken and I has, tweak our training here and there, maybe add a new type of lesson, maybe taking something out. So just really being organized in the sense of having all the materials and things that we've collected over the years to leave behind for whoever takes over my position. And of course, I'll be more than willing and happy to help that person coming in training, even sit in for their very first training to train other students. More than happy to do that here at Farrington. So good question. I'll think about that.
Yeah, since you asked, Katie, I did think about that. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to make sure I had laid out a platform with an overview and a manual. And I'm sure I'll be building and tweaking as I go. But yes, I would love to leave something that would, like, I love your idea, Tino, of training whoever was coming in, train someone. I definitely want to be asking, we haven't presented anything to the faculty yet. So when we do, I hope I can, maybe invite some people on board. We'll see. We're such a small school, but that would be great if I had a little partner in crime before we even get it off and running. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think that'd be very helpful, Benny, if you do have some help. That'd be nice.
Kelly, do you have any thoughts on this question? Sustaining it beyond.
Yeah, I guess for me, I do have a partner that works with me. She's been with me since for about 20 years. She is a professor at the University of Hawaii. She helps me sustain these programs is hard. You really have to get a grant for myself. The way that I attract students to the program is through food. So I do conduct the trainings at lunch once a week, and I provide pizza. So I needed someone to help support me with writing grants and just being there to support the students, helping me to set up training, so forth. And then I mean, she is professor off campus, but our counseling center at Kailua High School has also been very strong. And then I have had support. I hope that wasn't being negative about my my administrators at Kailua High. But yeah, just making sure that you're communicating with your administrators. And for instance, we are going to have a new counselor that we're going to be hiring at Kailua High. So just keeping those new people on board so that if something did happen and you did leave, you would have somebody kind of ready to kind of take that role and help, I guess.
Yeah, something that I seem to be hearing from all three of you, which fits perfectly into the sort of mediator mindset of this, is that it's the collaboration and the relationships that are so very important. Having someone not only within your school that you can sort of rely on and have as a partner as you're navigating through, but maintaining good relationships with, again, the administration within there, but also crosswise. The Peer Mediation Conference was there for the students to connect across schools, but also you all as coordinators have connected. You're learning from each other, you're sharing resources, and that is what is helping to make strong, sustainable programs, is that kind of we're all in this together. We're here together so that the students can really flourish underneath and in these programs as they're going through. We have a very specific question in the chat. If anyone has a Hawaiian language feelings and needs chart.
I don't, but if anyone does, I would love to also get a copy of that. I know I saw it, I'm like, oh, I even realized, yeah, no, I don't. Sorry. I like that.
So I'll take this time to kind of direct people's attention in the chat. Jose shared a link. This is a very simple website that has resources that are around peer mediation programs, things that have already been set up, just like the Kailua High School website, Shelley's website, that has that there. But if you have other resources, if you find that needs and feelings chart, if you are, if you've built out your own thing, please contact Jose. He's put his email address in there with the repetition of the website link. And we'd love to be able to gather these resources and to share, as we found that it's really in that sharing and in that connecting that we can have really strong programs that move through. We have just a couple of minutes left. I think we have time maybe for one more question if somebody has a question within chat. Otherwise, I am going to invite Jose to tell a little bit about maybe some upcoming events that you'd be able to get in and see and learn more from. But if we have one more question, we can probably do that. This is fantastic. What's a great success story from your program? Love to end on that.
That's a great one. I think what is so amazing for me to see, because there was a point where, it happens too, where all my mediators are so busy that I can't have two mediators. So in that case, not often. I try not to. I would sit in the case and just play as a mediator. So there was a case where I had an instance where, like I said, a lot of my mediators were just busy or just couldn't get put out of class. So I sat in it with another student. I mean, I think for me, there was this moment where one of the disputes and just kind of like had an aha moment. You hope for that to happen throughout the case, but she kind of had an aha moment. She was just like, oh my God, miss, like, that was really rude of me to have said that. Like, now I realize she didn't even mean it like that. And I was being such a about it. She's like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Like, I think for me, the success in that was just having them come to themselves rather than, because like I said, that's not the mediator's job to be like, hey, this is what I think. No, all of our job is just to hear you, understand, and just reflect back and summarize to you what you hear. And so hopefully you can hear it yourself. So I think in that moment, just having that student really just take a step back and just be honest and be like, wait, and just take ownership and accountability of her action was just such a like, oh, I was like, yes, thank you. Like, this is what it's all about, and then just helping her understand, like, hey, it's okay, let's not be harsh on ourselves, about it. I'm glad that you admit, and that's the first great big step. Now let's just be kind to ourselves and figure out now how can we move forward, moving forward from here. And if we are faced with the situation again, like, how can we navigate it? So like I said, just for me in that moment, really just seeing that like a light bulb, just like, and she was like, oh my goodness, like genuinely was like, I feel terrible. You know what I mean? Like, let's get to the bottom. Because at the beginning of it, she was like, just very like, yeah, no, whatever. Just kind of. But I think the way things are ran, when we have our individual sessions and we bring them back together, then we have another individual. I think the way it's ran, so we are able to really dig and get to the root of it, is what really I think help it be successful in that sense.
Fantastic. Yeah, those little bright moments. So wonderful. Betty or Shelley, would you like to share a success story? I know, Betty, it's a bit new to have like full-on success stories, but there are little successes too along the way.
I don't mind sharing. I guess my biggest moment, or just many moments, besides just having my kids in the program, I also had a student that was a peer mediator that became a school counselor and then got to live that whole role of like being her intern supervisor and then her actually working at Kailua High School. So just, I mean, it really does shape lives. But it really did stem from just that experience of being in peer mediation. Also, I was friends with Betty before she started this peer mediation journey. So it just meeting, other teachers and other counselors, Tino, it's just been fun. Like we've all of us just meeting and then getting to know our students and actually going to the other schools and seeing, what that other school is like. It's just a really neat process, I think. Just that collaborative process of meeting and also just modeling for the students like, hey, this is something like it's not easy being, professional, but this is the way that we're helping to navigate this process. It's through mediation, really, and this collaborative process, I guess. Oh, one thing I would like to add to, kind of like what Tino said, I think there's like a lot of students that you might not think would be that mediator, but there are those kind of kolohe kind of students that might, you might kind of disregard them and think like, oh yeah, they're not right for this. But those are exactly usually the students that I found that are actually the most successful mediators because they can see that other perspective. Sometimes those students that are getting straight A's and doing awesome are not the best students as mediators because they can only see that one way. They can get frustrated easily. So you'll never know when you're recruiting students. And the ones that I have thought, wow, maybe not a good mediator have actually surprised me. So that's been also pretty great as well to see that process.
Sure. Thank you so much
Wonderful.
for that. I think the success in general, like you mentioned earlier, Katie, is just really building their relationship. I think just the fact that students are even wanting to do this, like that Teresa and Chara over here, like it's a Friday after school. They could have been anywhere at home, hanging out, doing their thing. It's Friday. I would have, but they took the time to be here because they, genuinely enjoy it and have been so helpful and such a big staple to the program. So I guess I feel like just anytime you can get students in a room for a great cause like this, I feel like is a success itself. Whether the case that they did was successful or not, just the fact they showed up, came and tried and did it. I enjoyed it. And one thing I also wanted to mention is that whether our kids do a case or not, we try to do a quarterly lunch meeting where all the mediators from different cohorts, whether you were trained back in spring of 2020 or you was trained in the fall of 2023, we like to bring them all together here at the teen center and provide free lunch and free food, kind of like what Shelly does, but not weekly. Like I said, more so quarterly, just to keep everyone in touch. We play just different kind of quiz games, cooking, just to keep our 'cause maybe you've been trained 3 years ago but haven't really done much of a case. So just do little fun games and stuff to keep them engaged. And I also try to set up other trainings. Let's say you was trained, like I said, 2 years ago, but you're feeling a bit rusty. So I try to do additional training so you can come and just meet other people. And it's not full on intense, but just little skills that we can touch up on so that when I do call you for a case, you're like, okay, yes, Mr. Tino, I got it. And I have had students who are like, hey, Miss, like, I'm so sorry, I'm nervous, I'm not ready. And I'm like, perfect, it's okay, like, it's no offense. We don't like blacklist, like, thank you. I appreciate the honesty because the last thing we want to do is put you and other students in a situation where it's not beneficial for everybody. And so I think just also understanding and them saying no is also a good thing too, because it shows like, hey, they care. They're not just doing it just to get out of class or just for the glory or just to have a power trip or whatever that may be. So yeah, just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Thank you to all three of you. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, your knowledge, and really, yeah, and being so willing with your time and your energy, willing to share that with all of us here, as well as with whoever is interested in starting or building a peer mediation program. So I want to be respectful of time. We're a couple minutes over, but I think that'll be okay. Jose, if you can close us out, maybe forecast a couple of other events that will be coming.
Thank you so much, Katie, Betty, Tino, and Shelly for continuous support and, just being so open to these resources. I love that there isn't the typical like copyright and like intellectual property. And I appreciate that you're really just intentionally moving with your heart and wanting to really just develop these. And so thank you all for joining us today. I know there's a lot of wonderful questions, and the reality is that, as you kind of heard, yeah, there used to be a very vibrant peer mediation community programs on every islands. There would be funding to bring folks from the different islands together, the youth. Unfortunately, that time has passed. But I will say what's been wonderful and really beautiful. So I got involved with peer mediation back in, I think my first peer mediation conference was 2016. And what I learned then was that I was working at the Matanao Institute for Peace at the time. And we were basically providing the space. We would rent out like the ballroom on campus because, we had access to it, and then folks would come to the university for it. And what I realized, and I think this is one of the, and we would just do that consistently. And Susan Chang, who has been very instrumental to peer mediation continuously, the conference specifically, and also just training endless amounts of peer mediators over a couple decades. Um, uh, is a wonderful human being and guidance and light. And so I would just see her be like, here, Jose, here's the agenda. I try to connect with folks, and I would love the energy that she had and the vision and the support for students and our youth. And so something that came out of, yes, the pandemic was horrible, but I think it was also a learning opportunity to see how through technology we can still stay connected, we could continue to support each other. And so the peer mediation conference evolved. And yes, we went virtual for a little bit, but thankfully, as things reopened, we've been able to at least continue the gatherings. It's still called a conference out of I think, just to respect the history of it. But it is not your typical, like, I'm going to a conference and I need to dress my best and I'm gonna get name tags, like most folks might think of conferences. So it's really a gathering for the students who are actively participating in peer mediation programs. And it is currently Oahu focused. We would love it to be multi-island focused. The funding's not there. So right now it is a lot of volunteering of people's times and figuring out how we can best support each other and what space can we commandeer for a couple hours or for a day without there being a cost. And so and donations from the community, whether it's for beverages and food for the students. So uh, it is very grassroots. That's basically kind of the best way to explain it. So what it's evolved to lately is we figure out a gathering place, figure out a gathering place in the spring semester, and then simultaneously then we create a virtual session. And we're hoping to continue to do this if the funding appears magically, or if there's funding resources out there, please let us know. We're happy to pursue that further. Because yes, we have some folks here from Hawai'i Island, some folks from Maui. I don't think I got all the other places that folks are coming from, but I know that there used to be some programs on Kauai as well. So yeah, I mean, if we can come together, I think that would be wonderful. We have been very much focused on peer mediation programs on high school in today's program, but there is some really great work being done also on the middle school level and as early as third grade, is my understanding. So I just kind of want to let folks know that it's not just high school oriented. And also one of the things that I've learned myself this year and one of the other initiatives, so some things coming down the line, as Katie talked about, actually, Hawaii Technology Academy is in the process of developing one. So hopefully for our virtual session next year, we'll be able to share how they joined us at the next peer mediation conference. At the university at Hawaii at Manoa, I am actually in the process of trying to develop a peer mediation program right now because I'm also on the board for the Conflict Resolution Alliance, a local nonprofit. And one of the pukas or holes that I've seen is that we have wonderful students getting trained from third grade to 12th grade. And then we have some amazing mediators, facilitators in the community who've been doing this for many years and decades. And there's not that bridge, and so I'm hoping to be able to at least create that bridge at the University of Hawaii. And so, and along this journey, I've so some upcoming events. So if anyone out there in the community actually just wants to share about their peer mediation program or how they're working with youth later on this year, please reach out to me. I'm happy to facilitate and come together for that. The other thing is there will be another program related to peer mediation in August. We haven't figured out the date just yet, but everyone here will get a notice of it. Because one of the other students who's finishing up the grad certificate in conflict resolution as part of their practicum, they actually work at the Women's Correctional Facility as a social worker, and they are developing and utilizing, because there's actually a lot of research about peer mediation, how that can be helpful in the prison system as well. And so we'll be able to learn a little bit further about her journey to developing a program, not only for the, sorry, the women who are at the facility, but also I think her next stage is possibly develop something for the staff who work there. So it's kind of beautiful to just see how it's kind of growing. In the latest research, I also found in some refugee camps, they've been using peer mediation as well. So there's much more to learn. And so I look forward to connecting with you all as we learn together and build up our resources for each other. But thank you all for being here today. I greatly appreciate you all. And I'll keep it on for a little bit longer. But other than that, have a wonderful evening all. Take care.